All right, welcome to The Answer, where we ask and answer the biggest questions in the NBA. I'm Wes Goldberg, and joining me today is Keith Parish of Grind City Media. Keith does a great job covering the Grizzlies and the NBA on several podcasts, including Fast Break Breakfast and Grits and Grind. Keith, we're talking after the Grizzlies just won a thrilling game against the Cavs last night. They have won now 11 straight. They're up to second place in the Western Conference, just a half game behind the Denver Nuggets for the top seed. Why should people believe in the Grizzlies as legitimate championship contenders?
I think that there is a little proof of concept with elite defense plus superstar player in John Morant. I think also adding the fact that Jaren and Desmond Bane have taken quite obvious leaps again this season, which seems hard to comprehend, puts them in definitely title contention. I think it's a wide open field. I also go back to this weird stat, total novelty stat. The Grizzlies are 31-0 when they get a 10-point lead this season.
I love that stat.
That's a bizarre stat. I think the combination of having the best defense in the NBA plus the top 5 offense, it's like, what more do people want to see? I understand the skepticism of a team can't normally break through, because they've never done it before. But I think they honestly have as good of a shot as anybody. It's what the computer models are telling us. Just no one believes it. It's like last year this time, no one believed the Celtics were going to make the finals, and the Celtics did make the finals. I think it's possible. I'm not saying it's probable, but I definitely think the Grizzlies definitely in the conversation is one of the best teams in the NBA and should be mentioned as a contender.
You mentioned last year. What did you learn about this team after last season's playoff run? They get eliminated in the second round by the Warriors. How do you think that's going to help them this season?
I think it's an important process to go through of losing those close games and losing them. People forget this. And I think this is one thing where maybe small market Grizzlies fans are extra sensitive about the way the national media talks about us and our team. Just going through last season where the Grizzlies lost in 6 games to the Warriors, the Grizzlies had leads in the fourth quarters of 3 of those 4 losses. They were ahead in the final 2 minutes in 2 of them. And it's feels like no one ever remembers these things. Like, guys, John Morant played in 3 games last year. Desmond Bane was hospitalized for a back injury in the series. Steven Adams was hurt. Dillon Brooks was suspended. We never had our team, and yet, we gave the Warriors a run, the eventual champions. So I think just getting that out of the way, you had a underwhelming series against the Timberwolves, and that's the first time the Grizzlies had been favored in a series in 6 years. And so it's you just have to go through those things. I feel like, it was Bane's first playoff experience where he wasn't just playing spot minutes off the bench. Bane was massive in the playoffs last year. And Jaren has struggled each year in the playoffs with his offense. And you just see them they're so young. And I do think being on those national stages, getting attention, good and bad, for what you do as a team, it seems like it's a helpful process of what it takes for teams to eventually advance even further in the playoffs.
What is this team's connection to the city? How would you describe it? Is it at all like the grit and grind era? Because people want to compare. National broadcasts will compare it back then all the time. What is the connection of this team to the city right now?
I have a lot of trouble with these questions because I normally roll my eyes at them. But here's an example, Wes. When it was grit and grind Grizzlies, they're like, oh man, what a tough and rugged playing style, which reflects the blue collar character of Memphis. Right. And then now it's man, what a fun razzle-dazzle style. That reflects the creativity and excitement of a vibrant, creative city like Memphis. I'm you guys, we can write these things about everyone.
Right.
So I have difficulty with that. I do think they're connected to the city in the way that John Morant has embraced the town. I don't think anyone has concerns about all these rote conversations of, when is Luka Doncic going to ask for a trade? When will Giannis Antetokounmpo want to go somewhere else? We don't worry about it. He's from South Carolina. He played at Murray State. He's connected with the city, the people there. And I think all of the Grizzlies, they all have similar stories where they weren't the McDonald's All-American from the very beginning type thing. Maybe was Zaire Williams the highest prep recruited guy on the team? I'm just thinking, off the top of my head, I'm trying to think who was Dillon Brooks, man. He was a 2nd round pick, a 45th pick, and no one thought he would even be this good. And I can't get over the Desmond Bane stuff. Still blows my mind. No one, Desmond Bane, if he hadn't been hurt, he should be an all-star. Desmond Bane's averaging 22 points per game, 4 assists per game, 43% from 3. The Grizzlies are 19-5 when Desmond Bane plays. The Grizzlies are on a 65-win pace. That's another thing, Wes. The Grizzlies, all right, they have Best defense, one of the best offenses. I think we're up to 10 games that Jaren, Ja, and Desmond Bane have played together. Like, they're so deep. And I think in the pit of our stomachs, like the thing that does hold Grizzlies fans back is we do wonder, like, are we a regular season juggernaut? Like, is there another step to go? But we're not going to know the answer to that. And also, by the way, being a regular season juggernaut, super fun. I love it. Highly recommend.
Where were you when Ja Morant dunked on Jalen Smith?
Where was I? I was in my basement watching basketball. I mean, it was one of those. So, like, a lot of times when I watch sports at night, I got a couple of TVs, and a lot of times either I'll sometimes, like, my wife will be watching something on the other TV, and I'll have like a computer, and then like the other TV to be muted or something, or she'll be watching on her iPad with like headphones on. She's like, "Oh, big basketball night. I'll watch something," you know. And then I think I slightly startled her with my physical reaction, you know, because it was like I jumped, you know, like I definitely had like a uncontrolled reaction to, "Oh my goodness, did you see that?" And then no. So I remember the funniest thing was it's like I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old, and my 8-year-old's kind of getting into basketball, but not really. And I'm like, "Hey, you have to see this dunk. It's incredible. There's never anything like it." And he goes, "What did he do? A flip?" I'm like, "No, son, he didn't do a flip." And he wasn't that impressed. Poor guy's growing up on Ja Morant. He was like, "Yeah, that's pretty cool." I'm like, "That was the best dunk." What's wrong? Yeah.
Did he do a flip? Now
that's a fair question. That's a fair question.
Actually, now it's a little bit of a disappointing dunk. He did not.
Exactly. I'm like, no, he doesn't do a flip. You can't watch this. Never mind.
Maybe if it was a full court fast break, he would have had the.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I actually went back because you said we've never seen anything like this, and I agree. I don't think and I'm not breaking news here, but just the way that he brought his arm all the way back to the point where it was horizontal with the court. I went back like 23 years and just like did some YouTube deep dives, best dunks of whatever season, mashup, things like that. I don't know that we've seen anything quite like the arm that far back, horizontal to the court, and then bringing it back and dunking over somebody. And he dunked. Jalen Smith kind of floated out of the way, but he dunked over Jalen Smith. Like, that is a dunking over, not a fake dunk over. That's a dunking over a dude. 2006 Vince Carter.
Yeah.
Over Alonzo Mourning. That to me is maybe the closest thing that I've seen over it. Dwayne Wade, 2009, Dwayne Wade over Anderson Varejao, with just the level of ferocity to go over a player who's legitimately trying to stop you. You could go all the way back to 2000. Steve Francis over Jahadi White, of course, is a famous one. But this is that era, or that area that this Ja Morant dunk is in right now.
No, I strongly agree. I was trying to come up with similar things where, like, the angle of the cockback with how far that thing went back. I don't think I've seen it. And I actually specifically mentioned Steve Francis. Like, I remember Steve Francis would dunk like that, and he also was smaller, so it looks more impressive. There's more like parts flying around. Maybe that makes it seem more visually, aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, it's absolutely an all-timer. I mean, I just compare it to some of the ones we've had in the past couple of years where we've had like the Anthony Edwards over your boy Gabe Vincent, where like that one was so good. And, it's always hard to say, there's so much subjectivity when it comes to like, what's the greatest dunk. But that's why I honestly I need scientists to measure for me, like the angle of the arm reaching back and then rising up over a 7-footer. Right. It definitely makes it special.
Was it harder than doing a front flip?
I don't know. Who's to say?
3 core pieces: Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Buffest 3-point shooter in NBA history, probably. Jaren Jackson. Beyond them, who's your favorite role player after those guys? I'm not asking you who the best one is, just your favorite. You're in your basement watching Grizzlies basketball. Who's your favorite role player after those 3 guys?
I think it's got to be Dillon Brooks. I've basically become a Dillon Brooks disciple, and it was on accident because, like, I felt like everyone was criticizing him so frequently, and he receives way too much criticism for his on-court play. Like, he's spectacular. He's a really good NBA player. And I'm always like, I don't understand how people think the Grizzlies win basketball games. Like they're like, oh, Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. were out and the Grizzlies, they won again. It's like, how do you think that happens? Like, I don't understand how people like I've beat this dead horse over on my other podcast, like all these NBA rank things where it's like, is it just a mystery to these people how the Grizzlies have like the second best record in the NBA when like Jaren, and Desmond don't play together? It's like, no, Steven Adams is great. Dillon Brooks is really, really good. And so I think because of the wildness of Dillon, he's uncontrolled, and he does take some terrible shots, but like he's so good at defense. He tries so hard that I think, I would say he's definitely my favorite beyond the big three, my favorite guy there.
What do you want the Grizzlies to do at the trade deadline, if anything?
I haven't seen a deal that makes sense to me. I know everyone wants to package the salary of Danny Green, but like Danny Green's practicing now, and so reports are he's going to come back, and I don't see anything available for a trade that's better than a potentially healthy Danny Green. I mean, that's a guy who's won titles. He's a 3-and-D guy, and for me, that's the trade deadline addition, is hopefully Danny Green can play basketball and maybe soak up some of those minutes that are going to like Zaire and John Conchar, and maybe they wouldn't go to in the playoffs. So I don't see a deal out there that makes a ton of sense. Even like one of these home run deals, if it is with the Raptors, like OG Anunoby,
right?
The fit isn't ideal. And I do think what the Grizzlies have, we forget about it because, you know, it kind of came to a crashing halt in the Warriors series for a number of reasons, but like their starting five is elite. It was elite last year. It's been elite this year as far as like net rating. They're plus 23 both seasons per 100 possessions. Right. And I think that's enough with these leaps that Bane and Jaren Jackson Jr. have taken. Like we've already talked about Jaren Jackson Jr., who is just doing things that have never been done before in NBA history. He's on pace for having the greatest block percentage ever. And he's doing that while scoring 17 points per game and 18 points per game. And he's making 3-pointers. He's the first player ever to go 10 straight games with making a 3 and having multiple blocks in each game. And so like, I think with the developments we've had of Bane has become an all-star, and Jaren is an all-star, that you have a big three, that the pieces in my mind, and I'm probably a little bit prisoner of the moment, too excited about this regular season win streak, but like the pieces in my mind, they fit great around what they already have. They are all perfect complements. And so if we're looking at complementary pieces, no, I don't think Malik Beasley or Jordan Clarkson is a better complementary piece than Danny Green and John Conchar. Like we have, I think, most of our minutes accounted for, assuming good health in the playoffs. So I expect, and I guess I'm hoping for probably a quiet trade deadline for the Grizzlies.
Last question. Can you match each of the Grizzlies starters to a musical instrument?
Oh, wow.
Different than if they were in a band. I'm not asking you who the lead singer is, just a musical instrument for each of the starting 5 players. That's a great
one. I'm going to say my first thought is just Steven Adams is the bass guitar. He's just, you know,
like one of those stand-up bass guitars.
We'll give him an upright bass. Sure. Foundation rhythm section keeps us together. I think Jaren is an electric guitar. And I think he's loud, flamboyant, and maybe he's one of those electric guitarists who actually just kind of stands still, more of a shoegaze, just standing still. But like he's got it cranked, Smashing Pumpkin style. The amps are just raging. Let's see, I mean, the creativity. I almost honestly want to go piano or like saxophone or something. And let's see, Bane. I don't know. Bane's not screaming instrument to me. I'm going to come back to Bane. Let's say Dillon Brooks. We'll go banjo. It's a banjo. It's fierce. It stands out. You can't hide it.
Right.
If you got a lot of instruments playing and a banjo plays, you're going to hear the banjo.
Yep.
So
looks weird.
Yeah, looks weird. Yeah. You can't hide a banjo in an ensemble. You can't hide Dillon Brooks in an ensemble. Desmond Bane's my drummer. Why not? He's got those drummer arms. He's got those huge biceps. You know, he's been doing a paradiddle here and there his whole life growing up, practicing to those tapes to get just right so he can stay right in the pocket. I'll go drums for drummer it was instrument. Drum set, an entire drum set for Desmond Bane.
Keith Parish, nobody covers the Grizzlies better. Love talking to you, man. What do you got going on? Where can people find you?
If you're a Grizzlies fan, make sure you listen to Grits and Grinds. Go watch it on YouTube. If you like the NBA in general, well, you should be listening to Fast Break Breakfast. We have a great time just covering the weirdness of the National Basketball Association.
Thanks for hanging out, buddy.
Thanks, Wes.